Hello and welcome to the Made in Agusto Co Kenya webinar session on the recently released rating report for the sovereign government of the Republic of Kenya. In this webinar session, we will discuss the rating rationale for the Kenyan sovereign rating report, and in subsequent sessions, we will discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the key sectors of the Kenyan economy, and thereafter recommend some palliatives. Please join us as we begin. Agusto Co recently assigned a single B+ rating to the Republic of Kenya. The assigned rating reflects the country's resilient macroeconomic fundamentals, evidenced by an average gross domestic product growth of 5.7% in the last decade. With the country battling its worst locust invasion in 70 years, coupled with the devastating impact of the global outbreak of the deadly coronavirus on agricultural export and tourism activities, we expect Kenya's GDP growth to decelerate to about 3.5% in 2020 and remain modest at about 3.7% in 2021. This rating also reflects Kenya's position as the leading business hub within the East African community and the country's diversified revenue sources from income taxes, tea, coffee, horticulture exports, diaspora remittances, and tourism, as well as its healthy foreign exchange reserve buffer, which has supported the country's relatively stable local currency, the Kenyan shilling. However, Agusto Co notes that the Kenyan sovereign rating is moderated by the following weaknesses. 1. Persistent fiscal slippages by the government of Kenya, leading to expanded external borrowings, which have compromised macroeconomic stability. In 2019, Kenya's local currency debt as a percentage of total revenue, excluding grants, stood at 179%, significantly higher than that of Tanzania at 71%, but lower than that of Ghana at 226% and Nigeria at 372%. However, Kenya's foreign currency debt as a percentage of current account inflows in 2019 stood at a high of 173%, significantly higher than that of Ghana at 107% and Nigeria at 33%, and just slightly below that of Tanzania at 192%. Kenya's total public debt has been trending upwards from 4.6 trillion Kenyan shillings in 2017 to over 6 trillion Kenyan shillings as at the end of September 2019, which translated to about 60% of the country's GDP, above the 50% threshold by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. Following recent approval from the lawmakers to raise the country's debt ceiling to 9 trillion Kenyan shillings, we expect Kenya's near to medium-term debt profile to almost match the size of the entire economy, estimated at 9.5 trillion Kenyan shillings. Kenya's rising debt profile, particularly external borrowing, increases the country's vulnerability to external shock and portends a possible foreign debt distress, given the persistent decline in the country's revenue collections. Furthermore, we expect Kenya's debt service to revenue ratio in 2020 to be twice the recommended 30% threshold by the International Monetary Fund, which will further put a strain on planned development expenditure and its ability to fight the coronavirus should there be a widespread outbreak in the country. The second weakness we noted, rising budget deficit to GDP ratio. Agusto Co notes that Kenya's budget deficit as a percentage of nominal GDP has been on the increase from about 5.3% in 2012 to up to about 7.8% in 2019. And we estimate this to further worsen to about 13.8% in 2020. Furthermore, the government's widening fiscal deficit owing to the subpar revenue collection in 2019-2020 fiscal year remains a concern. The performance of top non-tax revenue sources such as receipts from agricultural exports and tourism was crippled by flooding and unprecedented locust swarm resulting from climate change and most recently the COVID-19 pandemic. Given that Kenya has consistently missed its revenue target by at least 8% since the 2014-2015 fiscal year, we expect the country's fiscal deficit for the 2019-2020 budget cycle to remain well above the government's 5.1% target and the East African countries' convergence benchmark of 3%. The third weakness, high risk of debt distress resulting from expected decline in government receipts from agricultural exports, foreign remittances, and tourist activities, owing to the adverse effect of the locust invasion and the coronavirus pandemic. Foreign remittances, which has overtaken tourism, tea, coffee, and horticulture exports as the government's biggest source of foreign exchange, played a pivotal role in stabilizing the country's currency in 2019. Although Kenya's foreign reserves closed at 8.7 billion US dollars in 2019, which represented 5.5 months of import cover, we expect the country's import cover to remain about the same level, despite falling foreign exchange earnings, as a result of foreign currency loans from international lenders is likely to have a cushioning effect. The fourth weakness, worsening balance of trade deficit due to low demand for the country's exports. Kenya's trade balance as a percentage of GDP showed that it will rise to about 10% of GDP in 2020, as Kenya is predominantly an import-dependent economy vis-a-vis its exports of agricultural produce and tourism. In terms of current account balance, we estimate a worsening of the current account balance from a 3.8 billion US dollar value in 2019 to about 5.2 billion US dollar current account balance in 2020. Here is a peer comparison of Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, and Tanzania. We've looked at the growth in real GDP over a 5-year average period, 2015 to 2019, and Kenya's average growth in real GDP stood at about 5.8%, which compares favorably with that of Ghana at about 5.7%, and much better than that of Nigeria at less than 1%, but less than that of Tanzania at just above 6%. Going into 2020, we expect Kenya's real GDP to decelerate to about 3.5% on account of the COVID-19 pandemic and impact on output. We also expect Ghana to face similar challenges and its GDP to decelerate to about 3.3%, while we expect Nigeria to record a negative growth in 2020, while Tanzania will remain upbeat at about 3.4%. In terms of consumer price inflation, Kenya's current inflation at about 5.8% in 2019 is expected to worsen in 2020 to about 7%, while that of Ghana, Nigeria, and Tanzania will follow suit on account of the pressure on input prices from the impact of coronavirus pandemic. In comparison of one-year central government treasury bills, we looked at Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, and Tanzania again. We note that in 2019, Kenya's average yield on one-year central government treasury bills stood at about 9.2%, which we estimate would increase to about 10.2% in 2020, while that of Ghana will remain around the same level at 18%, while Nigeria will see its yield drop from 12.1% average in 2019 to about 7.5% in 2020, while Tanzania will increase from about 8% in 2019 to about 8.7% in 2020. In terms of reserve, in terms of months of import cover, Kenya has hovered at about 5.5 months of import cover over the last 5 years, and we estimate that this will continue even up until 2020. Based on the aforementioned, Agusto Co hereby assigns a single B+ rating to the Republic of Kenya and attaches a negative outlook. Please let us have your comments on the Kenyan Sovereign Rating Report by sending an email to info@agusto.co.ke. We look forward to you joining us on the subsequent webinar sessions where we will discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the key sectors of the Kenyan economy. Thank you for listening.